Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Back to Basics, where we are doing that whole deconstruction journey and just kind of working our way through it and shaking ourselves and dancing. Yay! No, not really. We're just mostly deconstructing boring old Bible texts and talking about how they're not as hateful as you might have thought. I am the inimitable, because no one would want to, Pastor Don, and I am joined by everybody's favorite, Courtney Fraley. Say hi, Courtney.
Hi.
Right,
I am uncorking what anyone from Michigan might recognize as a health potion.
Yes, the good stuff. Me, on the other hand, I am rocking my favorite sports t-shirt, which I just got ordered from America as a birthday present to share with my daughter, representing the Niners. For those of you who don't know what that is my dedicated Star Trek joke for today's episode. So if you don't know, figure it out. And if you
that'll
know,
be the only
death to the opposition.
To the opposition. Yeah, so forgive my state today. It's not COVID according to my testing, but I'm sick again.
Yeah,
toddler plague.
I'm just coming off of getting my seasonal allergies at the same time I had a sinus infection, so I get it.
Great fun.
Yeah, that one took me a good 2 weeks to start getting over. It's been fun. In any case, speaking of things what are fun, shall we talk about the Bible?
There, you can take a screenshot of that and use it for my professional image for the church.
Yeah, that's a headshot if there ever was one.
Oh God. Okay, so we're still in Genesis. Yeah, we're gonna be there for a minute.
And we're only 18 chapters in, despite the fact that we're on what, like episode 24, 25, something like that.
Yeah, we've been at it for a minute.
Yeah, at least a couple of minutes by this point. Today we are on Genesis.
Our kids will all be like going off to college by the time we're done with the whole Bible.
You know, one of the podcasts I follow is working its way episode by episode through the entire back catalog of Star Trek. And I'm just looking at them kind of enviously, because they're going to run out of episodes long before we ever do. Which is saying something.
Have you figured out how long this will take if we actually see it through?
I couldn't begin to calculate, because sometimes we do one chapter at a time, sometimes we don't. But I'm going to guess we have, if this ever actually pays us any money, we've got job security probably for the rest of our lives. And if it doesn't, we've got a handy hobby. So in any case, Genesis chapter 18, anybody?
Can you read I don't want to.
Yeah, I'll read it this time. We're going to do this in two parts. So for this episode, we're going to be focusing on Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 through 15.
Is it 15 or is it?
Yeah, it's 1 through 15. I'm going to take my iPad.
It's a big old beefy one, this chapter.
Yeah, perfectly fitting for me. All right. So let's begin. Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 through 15. This is the word of the Lord for the people of God. I ain't so formal about that. A son promised to Abraham and Sarah, now with their fancy new names. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the Oaks of the Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up and saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread so that you may refresh yourselves. And after that, you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you said." And as Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it and make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent entrance behind him. Now Abram and Sarah were old, advanced in age. It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, "After I have grown old and my husband is old, shall I be fruitful?" The Lord said to Abram, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old?' Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? At the set time I will return to you in due season, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, yes, you did laugh.
this
And
is a fun one.
This one is a little bit of fun.
I love the hobbity nature in which he's like, we've got guests.
That is, I think, both unique and wonderful, but at the same time, also kind of why all the rest of this stuff happens.
Well, it said 3 dudes, right?
It is
3
men, and put that in pretty big air quotes, since there is definitely something of the supernatural about them.
That doesn't come through in this interpretation. Is there something in an earlier language that?
No, it's the supernatural experience here requires an understanding of context that we don't necessarily have in our nice, settled, modern English-speaking societies. So let's walk through what happens with these 3 men first, and we can kind of talk about why this is increasingly weird. And when I say this is weird, I mean that this is not weird in you're sitting down at the boardroom office table at work and suddenly you look around and there's somebody walking nearby in a clown suit weird. That's something that is just a non sequitur apropos of nothing and makes no sense weird. We're talking about the reason why Slender Man is scary to some folks weird, because it's almost but not quite real. So let's look at what happens. First off, we have the first sentence. The Lord appeared to Abraham by the Oaks of Mamre as he sat at the entrance to the tent in the heat of the day. That's later context applied to the story. They're telling you the determination in advance of the story. Forget about that part, but in the heat of the day is important, because Abraham is a functional nomad moving through a desert environment. In the heat of the day, they're set up at camp. When you're nomads, you move in the evening, you move at the night. You don't.
Yeah, I would think they'd maybe be sleeping, right?
For the most part. And they're not exactly nocturnal, but during the heat of the day is when you're sleeping, chilling, and hiding out in the shade. So he's hanging out under the tree in the heat of the day, and he looks up and sees 3 men standing near him. Note that, and this phrasing holds up in the Hebrew as well. It's not he looked up and saw 3 men entering the camp.
They were just
he
there.
Looked up and they were just freaking there. So operating from the assumption that we're dealing with 3 humans, which, by the way, this is one of the things I often point to when people ask me the question, is the Trinitarian God of the New Testament the same God as the Old Testament? Mm-hmm. I say, well, there are times where God presents God's self in ways that are very Trinitarian, even in the Old Testament. This is one of them. This is meant to be a presentation of the Lord and not necessarily an angel or anything like that. It doesn't say an angel of the Lord appeared. It doesn't say that a messenger came.
Well, and in verse 3, it says he said, my Lord. He's not, and now it's a small Lord L.
Yes.
But he's also saying that, he seems to be saying that to the 3 of them. And he's saying it.
Well, that there is an honorific appellation right there. That's not necessarily a singular plural issue. That's like nantoka sama in Japanese. You would apply it to one, you could apply it to many. It doesn't really matter. That's the English iteration of okyak sama. It could be 90 of you. It doesn't matter. You're still going to use the same. So that's just a linguistic twitch there.
Okay.
But so he looks up, he sees 3 men happen to be standing. And if we were to assume that Abraham is a relatively normal dude, which, the guy uses sexual assault the way most of us use a screwdriver, so maybe not normal by our standards, but still, more likely to assume a realistic explanation for things. He's going to assume that these are 3 people who are out walking in the middle of the day, which makes no sense. Neither of the explanations you could apply. Either they just appeared or they're out for a stroll in the middle of the noonday heat. Neither of them make particular sense.
Okay.
So right away, we're presented with something that there isn't a clear explanation for that makes logical sense. So he's going to assume they're human at least, which means that, okay, they must have been walking and I didn't see him. Why the hell they'd be doing that? I don't know, but all right. And so he does what the people of God are supposed to do when they come across someone like that. His assumption is immediately, if you're walking about in the desert in the middle of the day, holy crap, you must really be in need of some support here. Like, because there is no logical reason for you to be out here and just be fine. So you've got to be tired. You've got to be thirsty. I'm willing to bet you're hungry. And hospitality is the call sign of our people. So let's do the thing. And so he jumps right into it. And I think that is, I think, theologically the linchpin of the story, is the fact that Abraham saw these guys and he was immediately moved to generosity. Now, we're just coming off of chapters 15 and 16, where the promise of descendants are there. Chapter 16, not only the promise of descendants there, but it also required him to do fairly invasive surgery on everybody in his camp. Like, there is every reason to believe that Abraham, from where he's sitting right now, should be like, I should really conserve resources. Like, all of the men in my camp are going to be wanting to eat red meat for a minute here to heal up. And I've got to be able to have the resources to support this nation that's meant to spring forth from me. So I should probably not be dumping a full-on calf on randos who are walking around in the middle of the desert. So the logical approach here for Abraham at this point would be to say, like, yeah, the hell is wrong with you guys? Keep strutting. Like, you walk right on by.
But that's not the way of God.
That's not how he do, no. And that, I think, is the key on which the rest of this turns. Now, I have invested a lot in this series and in our Untitled, our hit series Untitled, which is also available on YouTube and the podcast for those of you who want to check it out. Unnecessary plug here. But Abraham is not great. Not great. And this carries over to Lot as well. Like, we're dealing with definitively flawed human beings here. Like, Abraham is just a tool with a tool. Lot is a tool with a tool who thinks Sodom's a great place to live. Like, we're not dealing with the best of folk here. And so in this moment, he's been given the promise. And then the next thing that happens is he's presented with a situation where, devoid of any other context, he has the choice between being compassionate according to the ways of God or practical according to the ways of humankind.
And he chooses the godly path.
Right. And this is, this does not remove from us, the understanding of Abraham, patron saint of sexual assault. But
you're gonna piss off so many people, dude.
Look, he did what he did. And we can't, this is actually, I think, theologically important. We cannot divorce that from this. Like, it is possible to be a profound screw up and holy in the same person. We are large.
We're not going to wait around until David did have that discussion.
No, because that's the whole theme of the book. David's just the highest profile example we have, but it doesn't start with him. Look at friggin' Adam. Like, what happened? He was a divine holy, the holiest of all humans, so holy that Jesus is referred to as the second Adam. And what did he do? Original friggin' sin. Like, yes, the whole human journey is that perilous tension between terrible sin and imago Dei. We have the image of God, we have divine sin in us, and it's not wrong to acknowledge that Abraham is a freak, but also a man of God. So now that no one else is listening, let's continue.
Did we make you stop listening with our weird tangent? Let us know in the comments.
That's what those are for, I hear, yelling at people for random tangents.
Yeah, please yell at us for things you don't like. It's good for the algorithm.
Anywho, so Abraham gets his decision point. And I find it interesting that his generosity winds up being, I'm going to say repaid here, because that's not really how generosity works, but you get my meaning, I hope. Through Sarah and not through him. Like, he doesn't, like, himself get anything out of this. Sarah, on the other hand, gets pregnant, which, being biologically male, I can't speak to this, but you can tell me whether that constitutes a reward or not.
It constitutes a lot of things. Reward is on that list. It's one of the big ones. It's a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and Sarah has some opinions about this, right?
Oh my God. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved this bit where she cracks up like, yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah. Like, it's
Yes,
literally
I
just her
laugh.
looking to camera and saying, my body is not ready.
My body was ready a long time ago.
Yeah, missed the window. And like, for all those who say that the Bible is dry and humorless, I really want to draw attention to verse 15. But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, yes, you did laugh. And that's it. That's the end of the story. Like,
God looks straight into the camera like he's on The Office.
yeah, and that's really that's like, setting aside millennia of cultural drift, that's pretty much the type of humor that's playing out here, is the kind of look directly to camera sort of thing. Like, to kind of couch this in modern terms, it's basically Abram and Sarah are old, they're advanced in age, she's gone through menopause, and so Sarah looks directly into the camera and says, bullshit.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, I know it's a little bit sexist, but every time I get into an argument with my wife, the phrase, it has ceased to be after the manner of women, like, that's such a useful, hilarious phrase to get yourself in trouble with.
I was just reading it and being like, we use a fairly true but modernized, like understandable translation without a bunch of thee and thou.
Yeah.
Is that still the best translation of that? It had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women.
The short answer is yes. The long answer is yes, but you're going to laugh when I tell you why.
Okay.
The answer is, of course, yes, this is the best translation. And the answer is because we are translating, not interpreting. The word menopause didn't exist because biological processes with women were not understood. Like, women are those magical creatures that, for some reason, produce children sometimes, bleed occasionally, and then stop. She had passed the point, which, in the way women do, she just couldn't do kids anymore. We don't know much more about that, nor do we care, because we are 3 or 4 millennia Old Testament writers and not, modern doctors.
Yeah.
So when we talk about fidelity in translation, this is actually, for biblical translations, one of the big questions. Like, it would be more biologically appropriate to translate verse 11 as, now Abraham and Sarah were old, very advanced in age, and Sarah had gone through menopause.
Yeah. But they didn't have verbiage for that at that point, so this is the truest thing.
So that would be
this is where it starts being smart to have footnotes, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I were writing a study Bible, that would be one of the footnotes I would add in. However, it's worth noting that the differentiation between translation and interpretation is very strict, particularly with like the NRSV and NRSVUE editions of the Bible, is they're trying to not be interpretive to the text. The authors of the text at the time did not mean to say she went through menopause. They didn't know what it was. So having said all of that, anything else you want to kind of peg into with this one, or do we want to kind of move on from here?
I think we've pretty much covered all of it. I just enjoyed this section. It had everything. It had a
little bit of joy, a little bit of fun, a little bit of mystery. It's a fun filler episode right before we get back to the serious stuff.
It had humor. It had cryptid men.
Yeah.
It had
a Trinitarian slender man. Like, it is what it is.
But yes, this chapter had everything. This chapter had Hobbit-like a welcoming sort of occasion. Hobbit-like generosity.
Yeah, we have it like generosity, and that always reminds me of that famous Hobbit theme from the Lord of the Rings movies, which is basically just a redress of the old hymn, "This is my Father's world," which always makes me smile. Yeah, the first what's it? The first 2.5, 3 bars is pretty much lifted directly from the hymn. The first
You'll have to
four
send me
to
a
6
comparison
bars are
sometime.
almost exactly the same. It goes in a different direction from there, but yeah, the intro melodic sting of the Hobbit theme is basically just lifted almost note for note from a Christian hymn. So, just in case you were wondering, this is the question that will probably appear in the flavor text of the episode. Are hobbits by definition Christian? Apparently so. And are Christians hobbits? Well, maybe. So that all being said, even though we're only just a few seconds on the other side of an elliptical edit, I'm going to kick it over to Courtney for our favorite request at the end of every episode.
Yeah, like, share, and subscribe.
That thing.
Like, it helps a lot. Comment, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, your thoughts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, pass the videos on to random friends and whatnot. Mail them, shoot them to the International Space Station, what have you. I would like to see our random rants about the Bible pop up on the ISS one day. I'd be okay with that. Failing that, links to website, Bible verse, and all that are down in the description. And oh my actual sweet zombie Jesus, things are popping up on the Discord. Like, get on our Discord server. Like, that's kind of for our weird little online adjacent community. The Discord server is where most of this stuff is happening for us. We got a Dungeons and Dragons.
It's practically the physical church.
It basically is our sanctuary, notwithstanding the fact that we have a sanctuary here in Japan. So if you are in Japan, hit me up. We are still having a place and doing the things. But like, for the most part, for our broadly international group, the Discord's kind of our place. We got a Dungeons and Dragons group. We got Bible studies going on. We got other stuff going on. It is a busy place and a busy time, except when it's not, but mostly it is. So
want to vent about parenting and share cute pictures of your kids?
We have got a thread for that.
Do you want to blast your favorite dank Christian memes? Shout out to that Reddit community too. We've got a place for that.
I literally just shared a meme that I built around George Takei's appearance as Captain Sulu in the most recent episodes of Lower Decks from Star Trek. That's the kind of people we are. So I really invite you to come join us, have some fun with us.
We've got an entire area dedicated to screaming into the void.
Yeah. We have our own personal void. It's great. So yeah, come join us. We're having fun, screaming into the void, doing Bible stuff. Failing that, I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you on the next episode of Back to Basics, which will be a whole interminable week for you and a whole interminable 3 minutes for us, because we record these in batches. So have a good week. We'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.